5 on Life's a Pitch. Still to come, don't miss our onion bag, and Amy and John will be back to look at tomorrow's back pages. But time now to introduce my star guest. He's a former footballer turned author who's written The Stupid Footballer is Dead. Please welcome Paul McVeigh. Here it is. Here it is. The Stupid Footballer is Dead.
Yes.
Where is he? Where have you left him?
Well,
Who was it?
You think there are a few about, do you?
Well, if the title of the book says The Stupid Footballer is Dead, that means you must think there are a few of them out there, or there have been.
Well, the premise of the book is actually all about to succeed in football now, you cannot be stupid. And I don't mean academically stupid, I mean in terms of your approach to the game, your flexibility, how well you adapt to the new tools and techniques coming into football. So really, that's where the stupid footballer cannot succeed as football evolves.
So what are you saying that footballers have become? Is it become more of a mental sport? It's not used to just run up and down hills pre-season, and isn't that still the case though in a lot of places?
Not really. In terms of even pre-season, like you've just mentioned there, it is so specific now for the training and the position. So it's nothing to do with those long runs and everyone doing the same. It's so individualised, and in terms of, you just look at like a Gareth Bale. He's such an athlete. These Yaya Toure, these are prime athletes, and now. But everyone's like that. You have the athleticism, and if you're playing in the Premier League especially, you have the ability. But in my experience, what most people don't have is the mental approach, and the correct mental approach is what I think I need.
Well, why did you make this switch into the mental aspects of the sport?
Well, I've always been interested in it. It's something that from a 17, 18-year-old, I thought, it's just 5'6", not exactly the biggest player there's going to be.
So you had to impose yourself in a different way?
In other ways, and I was looking at the likes of Teddy Sheringham at Spurs, and I was thinking, he's not the quickest, but he's an incredible finisher, very, very intelligent, and although I couldn't model myself on him physically, I could mentally in terms of how he outwitted opponents, what he did to try and outsmart players, and that was simply what he did. He just outsmarted them, and I thought, well, if I can model myself on anybody, then Teddy Sheringham's as good as someone as you could pick.
You always had that sort of Clint Eastwood stare, yeah? You go quiet and
That's
just look at you. Oh, yeah, you just quiet and look at you. And you're too friendly for that.
Well, he was actually... That's exactly how he was with me. So, as a 16, 17-year-old at Spurs, this guy's just, especially at Euro 96 for England, he was the star. Shearer, Sheringham up front, they were the two best players in the country. And for him to come in and sit in the canteen the year after, and for me to have conversations like when he was hitting the penalty in the semi-final, I was saying, like, you were so confident, you were just so ice cold, did you know you were going to score? And he was like, yeah, I just knew what I was going to do. So whenever you see, that's how he acted to me, and he was as good as you can get in football. Yeah. And I was this little 16-year-old lad from Ireland, so I thought, well, that's how I want to be whenever I come to being a senior player.
But you can't just choose to be confident, and you need somebody to help you be confident.
Absolutely not.
Really?
That's the whole point of the book, because confidence is an emotion, and so all your emotions, and this is like very, very basic psychology, so I'm going to do a little lesson with you. It's simply all your emotions come from how you think. Very, very simple psychology. Cognitive behavioural therapy is just every emotion you experience is down to some thought process in your head. So if that's exactly how you're thinking, you will then feel confident. Yes. Which is a good thing, because then no one can give you confidence, which might be slightly scary, but also what no one can do is take confidence away from you, which is very empowering.
So this is a decision you make yourself. You have to. It's much more complex than that, though, isn't it? Somebody has to. You could be battered from birth and not decide that you'll never feel that confidence. But somebody has to encourage you.
But why is there some people that come from like the worst backgrounds, in the real slums of any city, and go on and be complete successes, and other people who have absolutely everything, an abundance of every offering you could possibly have, every handout resource, and yet throw it all away. So
is that just bloody mindedness with talent, or is that confidence? I'm trying to work out the difference.
Well, I think there's a bit of both. In one side, it's the mindset. So what I'm saying is that to have the ability is a prerequisite. That's the bare minimum. To have the athleticism, everyone needs to have that. But for me, the players who are going to succeed as we go forward are the ones who have that mental approach.
So, first question: which clubs are employing these tactics now and basically concentrating on the mind as much as the body? How many clubs are doing this?
Well, I went on an FA psychology course, and the stat...
Is it for them? Or no. They were teaching psychology,
well,
were they?
I went on to see what they were talking about, and the stat that they gave me was there was only 2 full-time sports psychologists in the Premier League. Now, that's astounding, because if you think, you wouldn't think of having a part-time physio or a part-time masseur. So if you have a part-time sports psychologist, then surely, if you ask most people, even if you're, a big fan, you're an educated fan, if you think how important is the mental side of not just football, any sport, you just look at Rory McIlroy. He's sitting in front of a desk, at a press conference going, I need a sports psychologist. I'm struggling with my mentality. So that's what you need in top-level sport.
And that's perceived as a kind of weakness, though, when he does that.
Of course it is.
That would be even more so in football, because golf, of course, is a mental battle and it's about nerve. In football, it will be seen as you being weak if you need a shrink, as they would call it.
And that's what I'm trying to... So this is the whole mission of what I'm doing with the book, is I really want to try and change the culture. And that probably sounds quite, grand of what I want to do, but actually it's...
You're confident.
But I know it's almost like I know that I can help players, because whenever I've gone through it, and this is probably what my USP is, that if I'm standing in front of a group, I will be able to speak from experience, whereas other times I've been in changing rooms and you have a sports psychologist and it's a guy saying, well, this is what you should do, and if you're 2-0 down in a cup final, this is going to help, and when you run out in front of Old Trafford in front of 75,000 people, this is going to be the way to do it. But actually that person probably hasn't done it. He hasn't had the practical experience. So myself, along with the sports psychologist that I started my company ThinkPro with, we now have the experiential and the theory side of it, as well as my 20 years in professional football practical experience.
But again, when did you decide this was going to be your career path?
I think subconsciously, probably quite young, probably 19, 20. But I didn't know that it was going to lead into this. But consciously, it was about 2 years ago, whenever I knew that I wanted to come out of... And I chose to come out of football because...
Explain the confidence to me. You say some players have just full of confidence from day one. Explain how that happens and who are you talking about?
Well, the best example I could give you is Craig Bellamy. So I arrived...
He's angry.
He's angry, but he's
fuming.
Also supremely confident. And that's the kind of, force field of confidence that most people can never break. And I saw him whenever I came to Norwich from Spurs as a 21-year-old. And I was thinking, I left the likes of the Sheringham's, Ginolas, Ferdinands, those kind of Andertons. I arrived at Norwich and saw Craig Bellamy, and I was thinking, that guy is just as supremely confident, just as, had the belief in his own ability to be able to handle that kind of player. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, do you know what, he's going to go to the top, along with his work ethic, along with his ability. So it's not just the one component. Obviously, it needs to add to what they already have.
But you don't just practice this sort of mental game. You used to envision how you would play on the pitch.
Visualise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting my
no
lack
problem.
of knowledge.
No problem. We've got a dictionary coming to you.
I've got one under here, actually. We've got an atlas as well. But you used to visualise how you would play in a match, which is a skill, of course, which is now seeped into other sports first, like golf and like rugby, where the kickers would visualise where this would go. Surely this has helped penalty taking. It helped you during matches as well.
Of course it did. And I can only say this now, looking back after 20 years in football, that... And this probably makes me sound quite sad. As an 18-year-old, before training, I'd be sitting in the house visualising about what I wanted to do in games and in training. But not only visualising about it, actually physically practising it. So once we had the training, Chris Hughton was my reserve team manager at Spurs at the time, so we'd stay out and do the finishing afterwards. And I would do the exact same thing, which for me, it was because I was playing on the left wing at the time. I started on the left, cut in from the left-hand side, get the edge box and curled it into the far top right-hand corner. And now, whenever you look at my little YouTube clip on video, on YouTube of all my goals, about 40% of them are cut in from the left, getting to the edge of the box and curling them in the far top right-hand corner. And I can't say whether that's proof or not that visualisation works, but I think it's a good way to say it definitely helped me.
Do our top players do this, and is there enough of it through the game? What about the
I
national
don't know.
side?
I don't know. This is what I'm looking to do. And at the minute, we're working with some Premier League clubs, especially with their academies, and we're now looking to take it into first team level. And we actually did our first session last week with a Premier League team in the first team, and that's brilliant because
Are we allowed to say who they are?
No, I don't think we're allowed to. I have to keep
I
that
won't ask if
confidential.